The Chosen Season 2 premiered yesterday. Did you check it out? I'm excited to talk about it and dive into spoilers. If you saw it, what are some of your favorite parts? Let's talk about that in the comments.
I'm preparing something to share with the world.
Welcome to Durbania, I'm Durbin, and this is my spoiler talk review for Season 2, Episode 1 of The Chosen, Thunder. What a great title for this episode. Like I said, this is spoilers. So if you have not seen this episode, check out this episode before diving into this. Or if you haven't seen the show, binge the now 9 episodes that are up. This show is absolutely fantastic. Then join me here and let's talk about our favorite parts, and I want to hear about that from you in the comments. Now, one of the things that I loved about this episode was the framing device that they used, the way they opened and closed this episode. It was incredibly smart and clever. It's John compiling the eyewitness accounts to put together the book of John. So it opens with a flash forward in the future, and I remember leaning forward in my seat when the episode started and going, what is going on here? Why does Simon look old? Why does he have streaks of gray in his hair? What is going on? And when I saw that it was John interviewing the disciples, interviewing his friends to get their eyewitness accounts, I went, that is smart. It was very cool because it gives you a good idea of like, what was it like for the Gospels to be written? What was it like for John, for instance, to sit down and write his book? And how did he compile that? So here he is talking to his friends, getting their accounts along with his account. And so that was really fun. And what was great about it is it brings you right back into the show. Something I said in my spoiler-free review is once Season 2 started, it's like it never missed a beat. Everybody got right back into their characters. The show got right back into where it left off. I mean, John is interviewing Matthew.
It was the 4th morning of the 3rd week of the month of Adar, sometime during the 2nd hour.
It doesn't have to be precise.
Why wouldn't it need to be precise?
Mine is going to be precise. He's referring to his own book that he's going to write. But it was great because that's Matthew. That's the Matthew we've come to know and love in Season 1. So nobody missed a beat. Even though we recasted Big James, the new actor did a great job not missing a beat and just diving right into it. So everybody just got right back into their characters. We got right back into the field. We got right back into it. And this was a great way to open it. One of the things that I thought was really cool was John is talking to Mary, the mother of Jesus. And now she's living with him and he's taking care of her. It's because when Jesus was on the cross, he said to John, behold your mother, referring to Mary. And to Mary, he said, behold your son, referring to John. This is Jesus saying, John, take care of my mom. And that's what he's doing. And Mary just had this great line where she's like, well, if you wrote down everything that he did, there wouldn't be room in the world for all the books. And he's like, yes, a disclaimer. That's perfect. And so he decides he's going to add that into his gospel. So all of that is very cool, and it's a creative way to show that. Now, something else that this did for me that I guess I never thought of, and I should have. John was talking about, future generations, and this will just be words on a page, but how John can remember the sound of his voice.
Others, they will not even remember the sound of his voice.
And man, that hit me. Yeah, they're words on a page for us, but they are living words. When we read those words and believe them, they change everything. So they are full of power. But that's amazing, the personal connection. And what a reminder, the disciples walked with him and talked with him. They heard these words from his mouth. They heard his voice. And it was very compelling how you felt the emotion in that scene of how much they missed him. How much they missed him being physically there and actually hearing his voice. So that was powerful, and that was a powerful thought that introduced. And again, that's what this show does. It gives you that unique perspective, maybe that thing that you didn't think of before, and it's like, wow. And then it ends the same way, but I love how it ends because the character John has a very interesting character arc throughout this episode. So I'm going to just jump to the end real quick, and then I'm going to dive into, what I liked about John in this episode. But at the end of this episode, Jesus in Samaria was asked to go to synagogue and do a Torah reading. And so he asked John to come in and help him pick what passage he should read. And they had a very interesting dialogue, great way to establish the close friendship between Jesus and John. But what was also really great about it is when John started talking about like his favorite part of scripture, it's how God spoke and things came into existence. And then he and Jesus quoted a verse together, and it was such a great moment. And Jesus goes, you know what?
I like that. And it is a favorite memory.
So he grabs Genesis to do a reading from the very beginning, Genesis chapter 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. But what is so brilliant is we flash forward again, and this is John reminiscing on this moment. And what this leads to is Jesus doing this reading, and he's reading the beginning where God spoke and the worlds came into existence. As John goes, I know how I'm going to start my book.
In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth.
In the beginning was the Word.
I am getting chills right now as I'm saying this to you. It was this amazing compilation how it ended of Jesus reading Genesis chapter 1. God spoke and the world came into existence, and John writing, and he is the Word, and the Word was with God. It was a very powerful way to begin and end the episode and give us that incredibly unique perspective. And like I said, John's character arc throughout this episode was so incredibly good and very compelling. It just drew me in, and John was the character that I felt like I really attached to. Well, both John and Big James. This is the episode where they get the nickname Sons of Thunder. Hence, the episode is called Thunder. So again, the great framing that John is writing this during a thunderstorm, reminiscing on Jesus, giving him and his brother who was just martyred, which is why all the disciples were together and he was getting their accounts, adding more emotion to that. So there he is thinking of the Sons of Thunder during a thunderstorm, and this is the episode where he gets that nickname.
Cannot hear it without thinking of you two.
But the way this opens is you have Big James and John, and they're plowing a random field. And they think it's just random. Nobody owns it, and Jesus is just having them plow this field and plant the seed in it because as strangers are traveling through, there will be food for them. And so it's Jesus being generous to the weary traveler. And that's what they thought they were doing. And so here they are doing this thing of service. They're working so hard, but they're just happy they're not in Samaria at this time dealing with Samaritans. That's something this episode does a great job with, is showing us that Jews and Samaritans did not like each other whatsoever during this time. There was a lot of animosity, a lot of just flat out hatred, and you really felt that. And that's the background of this episode and everything that's going on, and it's the background with James and John's character arc that they both really dislike. They just despise Samaritans. So here they are working this field, they finish it, they come back, and Jesus praises them for such a job well done. He says to the other disciples, let them eat and then ask them about the labor that they did today. And so Big James and John, they just get a little bit of a big head. Big James and John are asked to lead the disciples into the market and to, go off and do some shopping for a dinner party that Jesus wants to have, and Jesus wants to be the one to provide the food at this dinner party. Now, Big James and John's, they're just walking through the market, like, big head, like, yep, we are in the inner circle. Jesus, he let us in on his plans, not you guys, us.
You guys are really enjoying this being in the know, huh?
He told us his plans.
And so it just shows you the growing pains of the disciples. These are totally different personality types, all meeting, all now having to work together, all human. And it's so interesting to see the disciples deal with that because it's so incredibly relatable, and it just really pulls us in deeper into that world. And then again, Big James and John, after they give everybody their assignments of what they should go by, they're just like, well, we're just going to go ahead and get off the road here because, well, the big problem with Samaria is too many Samaritans. And so off they go to do their own thing. Well, then we get the big reveal. That random field that they plowed, it belonged to a Samaritan who had broken his leg, a Samaritan who couldn't work, a Samaritan who had a wife and a daughter. I think his name was Melech, so forgive me if I said it wrong, but he has a wife and a daughter. They have no money, they have no food, And so they plowed his field for him. Not only that, the Aaron, it was to buy food for the dinner party at his house, so that Jesus and his disciples are now providing Melech, his wife, and his daughter with a meal. And so it's like this great humbling moment that they thought they were just on the inner circle of this. They thought it was okay to hate the Samaritans. And here's Jesus doing all of this work for this Samaritan man. And now there's even more to that. And I'm excited to dive into that because that really just gets into stuff that really moved me. But it's just these powerful moments where James and John are humbled. But the biggest moment comes at the end of the episode. And so Big James and John, they're really trying to get the other disciples on board for their agenda. They think they're the leaders. They want to take charge. They're tired of arguing where they're going to go every day. The other disciples make the point, well, quit arguing. We're just going to follow the boss. And they're like, look, the boss chose us, and we're going to do this schedule. And, the disciples aren't quite on board, other than Matthew, who likes the idea of a schedule. I love Matthew so much. But Big James and John get so angry, they run out. They go to find Jesus as he's out on a prayer walk. And as they find Jesus, some Samaritans find them and throw rocks at them. And man, if I was in a place and somebody threw rocks at me, I would want to throw rocks back too. And Big James and John, they're ready. They are ready. Now, earlier in this episode, Jesus was talking to Big James and John alone, and he's talking about how the day is coming that the things that Jesus did, they will be able to do, and greater things, that he would invest that authority in them. And so when these Samaritans said all these mean things to them and threw rocks at them and then took off, Big James and John were like, give us that authority right now and we will call fire down from heaven. It was the absolute mistake, the worst thing we could have done to come here. And Jesus is like, you want to use the power of God to call down fire on them?
Can you not see what's happening here? These people that you hate so much are believing in me without even seeing miracles.
Those lines are powerful. Here are the Samaritans believing without the miracles. They're listening to the message and they're believing the truth.
And you're going to get in the way of that because a few people from a region you don't like were mean to you.
And so Jesus is trying to teach them through, sowing Melech's field. He's saying, I didn't do that to just teach you a lesson about being a good person or to be a better farmer. I'm trying to teach you that the word is what we're sowing and it's going to impact generations.
What, you're so much better? You're more worthy? Well, let me tell you something. You're not. That's the whole point. It's why I'm here.
Now that scene is intense, but what an amazing picture of love there. Because he loves his disciples, Big James and John. He's disciplining them. He's confronting the pride and the hate that is in their heart. And he's tearing that down. But he's not tearing it down to tear them down. In fact, just moments later, he puts a hand on John's shoulder, a hand on James' shoulder. He's walking with them forward, and he begins to smile and build them up.
As we gather others, I need you to help show the way. To be humble.
Here's where he gives them the nickname Sons of Thunder because of that zeal to call down lightning, to call down fire from heaven, to consume his enemies. And he's like, today, Sons of Thunder, not a good thing. But that passion, when we channel it through righteousness, can be a good thing. So he starts to build them back up. And so it's this great scene where James and John are humbled. So when we get to that end where I was talking about, where Jesus wants John to come in and have him help him pick out something to read in synagogue, John is saying, why do you want me to do this, Jesus?
I do not feel very much worthy.
Who's worthy of anything?
You?
That's so true, right? But what I love about that moment is I know those feelings. I mean, John is not just looking at his anger in that moment, he's looking at his heart. And now he's feeling guilty. And now he's feeling unworthy. And he's saying, I shouldn't be here with you right now. I shouldn't be helping you pick a holy scripture to read in synagogue. That should not be what I'm doing right now. And Jesus just continues to invite him to work with him.
By the word of the Lord,
The heavens were made.
How often when we feel guilty do we think Jesus wants to call fire down from heaven and smite us? And I could understand John's feelings of guilt standing there realizing how short he fell of all of that, how much he failed in everything that he was supposed to be learning, and so full of it that he didn't even realize the lesson that Jesus was trying to teach him. And yet, Jesus was not looking for an opportunity to smite him or condemn him. Instead, Jesus invited him in to work with him. What do you think I should read? What an incredibly powerful scene and picture. And so speaking of Jesus, my gosh, I love this portrayal of Jesus. I love his personality. And one of the things that I love is how this episode opened and nobody could find Jesus. He was just missing, and like crowds are gathering. Where is Jesus? So as they go everywhere and look, we cut to Jesus under a guy's cart fixing the axle. So he's serving in probably one of the most practical ways possible, which then leads into a crowd gathering around there, because the woman at the well that he talked to at the end of season 1 has been telling everybody in Samaria about him. And so she's got a crowd now gathering where he is. And what I love is the way they handled these parables, because as he's teaching, he does the parable of the good shepherd with the sheep. If a good shepherd has 100 sheep and one goes astray, the good shepherd will leave the 99 to go after the one. Then he finds it, he'll put it on his shoulders. He will carry it back to the 99 and he will celebrate with his friends. So this leads us back to the humbling lesson with Big James and John, with Melech, the Samaritan. And now, this is a very interesting perspective getting into the parable of the Good Samaritan. Because here he is at Melech's house. They are sitting around the fire. And Jesus was asking him, how did you break your leg? And as Melech slowly begins to unfold the story, it turns out he was a criminal. He and his partner saw a Jew on the road on a horse. They pulled him off his horse. He hit his head on a rock, so he could be dead. They don't know. They stripped him naked, took his stuff. Melech's partner was going to take the stuff and sell that. Melech was going to take the horse and sell that. As he rode off with the horse reared, he fell and he broke his leg and the horse got away and he had to crawl in the town with nothing. He did all of that to try to feed his wife and his daughter, and he came home worse than when he started. And for all he knew, he had killed that man.
So now you know what you've done, the kind of man you've helped.
And you know what Jesus' response was?
He didn't die.
It's the parable of the Good Samaritan. And what's even more powerful is how that guy is talking about you in the town have everybody throwing themselves at your feet. Why would you depart all of that and come here to my house?
The shepherd leaves the 99 on the mountain to search for the one that went astray.
So we get a unique perspective of the story of the Good Samaritan, where Jesus tells the criminal in the story that a Good Samaritan came and helped out that Jewish man, and he survived. While doing that, we see the picture of the Good Shepherd who leaves the 99 and goes for the one. And then think about this. So there's no Tylenol, there's no Advil, there's no pain medication whatsoever, so his leg is broken, and he probably deals with that pain all the time. And Jesus hugs this guy when they're about to leave, and he says, have a good night's sleep. And then, they go to where they're staying, and the next morning, that man wakes up, and there's no pain, and his leg is 100% restored, and it's so cool to see him jumping around. Then it cuts to Jesus, where he's staying, waking up in the morning with this great big smile on his face, and he says,
"Oh, I just know of a family that's having an unexpectedly good morning."
So again, the portrayal of Jesus is absolutely astoundingly well done in this show. And then one of my favorite scenes and favorite lines. So the woman at the well, right? So she and her husband, their relationship, it seems, is on the mend now that she's met Jesus and he's told her everything about her and she knows he's the Messiah. So now her husband has invited Jesus and the disciples to stay at his house. He's got 5 spare rooms, and he's like,
one of the rooms is haunted by my dead grandmother.
Oh, I'll take that one.
I love that line! And so it's these great moments that just endear you to these characters. And so there's so much promise with the chemistry of all of these disciples. So many great things ahead for season 2. I am beyond excited to see where this is all gonna go. Is there a lot of stuff I missed in talking about this episode? Yes. I talked about my favorite scenes. I talked about those things that impacted me the most. Now, what has impacted you the most? What are some of your favorite parts and your favorite scenes that really spoke to you and jumped out to you? I want to hear from you in the comments right now. And while you're doing that, hit the subscribe button to become a Durbanian and hit that bell by the subscribe button so you're notified for the next time I do a Chosen review, a movie review, ranking video, theological analysis, or anything else I do here. I'm Durbin. Thanks for checking out Durbania.